Welcome students, welcome to my lecture. Today I shall be teaching you Oscar Wilde's short story The Nightingale and the Rose, which is included in your syllabus. For your easy understanding, I have divided my lecture into two parts. On the first part, I shall be briefly going through the entire story and tell you the significant segments of the story, discuss briefly, and in my next lecture, in the second part, I shall discuss all those critical uh, focuses, all those important issues and aspects concerning the story. So, this is a very short story written by Oscar Wilde, and before going to the story, you should know that Oscar Wilde belonged to a very problematic category of writers and authors because his writing spans across the Victorian era towards the modern era, which we commonly term as the fin de siècle. Fin de siècle literally means end of the century. So in this phase of fin de siècle, it is not only a categorical or a temporal axis which denotes the end of a century and the beginning of a new century, but literally, socially, culturally, it signifies the ending of a set of rules, attitudes, social customs, literary modes, genres, and the beginning of a new set of customs, new set of social and cultural attitudes and behaviors. Right? So Oscar Wilde was writing in this period, and along with Walter Pater, Oscar Wilde was involved in the famous movement Arts for Art's sake, which we often term as the aesthetic movement at the end of 18th century, at the end of 19th century and the beginning of 20th century. So, if we go through the life of Oscar Wilde, we shall or we should consider these important issues. Number one, fin de siècle. Number two, arts for art's sake. And number three, the emphasis, the focus on aestheticism. These are the three most important aspects that you need to remember before reading the story. Now, in this story, there are 4 to 5 major characters, right? We are introduced to a student of arts and humanities, and of course also science. There is a nightingale, a bird, and this student fell in love with his teacher's daughter, the professor's daughter. The daughter had promised the student that if you can bring me a red rose, then I shall dance with you. And at the end of the story, we also get introduced to the chamberlain's son who sort of had fascinated the professor's daughter. But that is a later consideration. Now, the story opens with a nightingale sits in her nest in an oak tree. She overhears a student speaking mournfully about his sweetheart, who has said that she will not dance with him unless he brings her a red rose. And Nightingale, hearing the student's words, thought that he is a true lover, and I must dedicate myself, my life, for the sake of this true love. And she goes on in her venture. Now, this tearful declaration of love suggests that he is a quintessential romantic hero, I mean the student. So it is not hard to see why the nightingale considers him the answer to her song. In fact, it is almost like that her act has actually conjured an ideal lover into being. It is very much significant for your consideration that, however, that the student also draws attention to his intellectualism through pursuing the studies, philosophy, mathematics, and other disciplines, since this will ultimately prove to be more important to him at the end of the story, as we will see. That is then his feelings for the girl. So the student is very materialistic, and this materialistic approach we can also find in the character of the girl whom the student loves. Now, there's this unrequited love of the student for the daughter of his professor, imagining in great detail how the girl will pass him at the princess' ball unless he finds a rose for her, and this troubles the Nightingale very much. Now, the Nightingale decides to help the student, risking her own life, and then he flies to the center of the garden to speak to a white rose tree, who says that my roses are white, these are not red, you go to somewhere else. Then she directs her to his brother by the sundial, and according to the Nightingale visits the yellow rose tree, who in the same manner refused her that my roses are yellow, they are not red, so I cannot provide you with a red rose. Finally, when the Nightingale comes to this red rose tree, he confirms that yes, my roses are red, but there is a problem. The problem lies in the fact that he cannot grow one in winter. The Nightingale presses him, right? She tells him, she pursues him, but however, he eventually admits that there is a possible solution. And what is the solution? It is a very dangerous solution. That by singing as she impales herself on one of his thorns, the Nightingale can bring a rose into bloom and die with her own blood. Right? So, this procuring of a red rose, this blossoming of the petals of a red rose, necessarily demands the sacrifice of Nightingale's life. The Nightingale had to die to get the flower bloomed, right? Hearing this statement made by the red rose tree, the Nightingale was not afraid. She made up her mind and flies back to the student, tells him the good news that okay, you will finally get what you want. But unfortunately, the student fails to realize what Nightingale was saying to him, because she was not a human being and the student cannot understand the Nightingale's language, a bird's language. But there was an oak tree. The oak tree asked the Nightingale to sing one more song before she dies. Right. After the Nightingale sings, the student criticizes her performance, right? Saying that it is stylistically impressive but emotionally shallow. So here we come to this aspect of shallowness and naivety. It is for the materialistic approach of the student that he fails to understand, he fails to realize the tune, the melody, and the depth of the Nightingale's song. He fails to measure that depth. So, the student's reaction to the Nightingale's song lends further credence to the idea that his intellectualism is actually clouding his ability to see the world clearly. Right? Now, what happens after that? When evening falls, the Nightingale flies to the red rose tree and perches against the thorn. As the moon listens, she begins to sing about the young love, causing a few indistinct petals to appear on the tree. So, gradually, in a gradual process, the rose tree tells the Nightingale to press herself further onto the thorn. The Nightingale continues to sing, and the rose tree repeatedly warns him that the day is fast approaching. So, pierce yourself, pierce your heart, because the time is about to mature of a romantic love, and the rose begins to turn pink. After a rapid weakening, the Nightingale sings about sacrificial and undying love as all of nature listens to it. The rose finally reddens, and the rose tree tries to tell the Nightingale that she has been succeeded into blossoming the flower. Sadly, very unfortunately, the Nightingale was already dead. Now, as the student found out that a red rose has been blossomed, the student plucks the red rose and goes to the girl, the professor's daughter, his house. And when he arrives, the girl is sitting outside spinning silk. But to her dismay, the daughter replies that the Chamberlain's son has already gifted me the jewel, and the rose does not match her dress. And in any case, she does prefer the jewels, the materialistic value of the jewels that she had recently received from the Chamberlain's nephew. In response to this girl's refusal, the student huffs that the girl is ungrateful, right, and throws the rose into the street to run over by a car. See, this is ending the fate of that beautiful rose, which necessitated a nightingale's, a beautiful bird's life to blossom, and the student just threw it away. The girl retorts that the student is very rude, he is insolent, and makes fun of his relative poverty before storming into her own house. Now the student, after a severe heartbreak, he walks away. He thinks about how impractical, how irrational love is, and concludes that it would be better off devoting his time to studies, to study philosophy, and therefore returns to his room and begins to read an old book. So the fundamental question that this text offers, that the story offers to its readers, that is love really irrational? Is love really impractical? On the denotative level, of course, love is irrational, because if it had not been irrational, then the nightingale would not have dedicated her life for someone's other benefit. The nightingale died, rather she sacrificed her life so that this student can be reunited with the girl whom he loves. Right? But what happens that the girl valued money, the girl valued the jewel rather than the rose, the very red rose, which took shape, took form by demanding the sacrifice of a life. Now, this complaint about love is situated or located at the heart of Oscar Wilde's critique of rationalism and materialism. Right? So Oscar Wilde had rejected love on the grounds that it is impractical, and like the student had argued that no one believes things that are not true. So his decision to embrace abstract philosophy, however, implies that he is either not interested in practicality after all, or he does not even understand or realize the rationalism. So this is how Oscar Wilde is critiquing, is providing a scathing critique of this student's materialistic worldview, this extreme emphasis on practical knowledge, rather than listening, rather than paying heed to one's own thought. In my next lecture, I shall analyze the story, giving a more critical focus. Thank you.